Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. I mean, come on. Take a look at the record.
You know, I've been critical of you. I have a few things I want to talk to you about today.
I know you have. Yeah. You don't know me.
No, I don't. That's why I want to get to know you today. I want to talk to you about mostly black stuff.
I get overwhelming support from the black leadership, young and old. Every poll shows me way ahead.
And black people saved your political life in the primaries this year. They have things they want from you, and one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. We've seen it more clearly now. In a black majority county, they're 6 times more likely to die in the pandemic than a white county. They're disproportionately uninsured in the African American community, disproportionately make up the essential jobs that they can't do at home. They're risking their lives every day. Enough's enough.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen,
yes.
I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, fam? So another video. As you guys just saw, that clip was from the Washington Post YouTube channel. And it was basically a clip of Joe Biden's "You ain't black" comment, where he has apologized, but he said, if you have a difficulty choosing between me and Trump, you ain't black. And a lot of black people had a problem with that because we're the only people who are seen that way. That's why myself and others have been involved in political movements and strategies where we are going to withhold our vote specifically from the Democratic Party, which Joe Biden is a member of, because they feel so entitled to our votes, as Joe Biden just showed you in that clip. Because nobody would ever say to a Hispanic person or an Asian person or a white person, if you have a difficulty choosing between me and Trump, you ain't Asian, or you ain't white, or you ain't Latino or Latina. Nobody would say that, would dare say that to any other group. Or if you have a difficulty choosing between me and Trump, you ain't Jewish. Nobody would dare say that to any other community except the black community. Now, technically, most politicians are smart enough to not even say that to the black community, even though they think it and show it in their actions, which is why they give us no specific policies. But Joe Biden is old and senile and losing it, which he's shown on multiple occasions. If all you got to do is watch his interviews or his rallies before the virus and watch him stumbling over words, and you know the thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and you know the thing. Like he's losing it. He's losing it. So because he's losing it, he's also lost the ability to constrain himself in ways that he probably would have in the past. Because probably even Joe Biden is politically correct enough. And again, this is not saying that the Democrats in general know that this is bad, but in general don't think this is what I mean, better yet. It's not saying that the Democrats don't actually think this, but what they do know, even though they actually think it, is to not say it. It's just like if somebody's fat, even though you might think they're fat, you're not going to walk up to them, for the most part, unless you dislike them or that's just how y'all joke. You're not going to walk up to them and tell them that they're fat. It's the same thing with the Democratic Party towards black people. They know that we're enslaved to them, basically, because the quote-unquote Republicans are worse, which is a dangerous, deadly mentality. And it's shown by the condition that black people are in. That's why we're in a position right now to have zero wealth by 2053, because we've already been thinking that the Republicans are worse. So again, remember, when somebody who's out here telling you that, you know, they're so politically educated and they worked in politics and they can teach you about politics and educate you about politics, and then they tell you to do the same thing that we've been doing that's got us into the position to have zero wealth by 2053, that they keep that same person keeps holding up to say, this is why you should listen to me, because we're due to have zero wealth by 2053, and then they tell you to turn around and vote for the Democrats, which is what we've already been doing, because quote unquote the Republicans are worse. And the Democrats already have this mentality. And my bad, fam, if y'all heard that. My 2K video game is going off in the background. But anyway, and I don't know if y'all heard that or not, but if y'all did, my bad, fam. But as I was saying, so the Democrats already think it. That's why Joe Biden said it. He said what he was thinking, but what he lacks is that restraint, that tact to know not to say certain things. So and also he's not used to being pushed at all, and Charlemagne was pushing him a little bit. Now Charlemagne is a fraud. Charlemagne, I don't rock with Charlemagne at all. Charlemagne has shown on multiple occasions that he cannot be trusted. All right. And I don't want to get into it, but there's been a lot of stuff that he's done, a lot of interviews, a lot of statements. He's not on code at all. But in order to stay relevant, because the black grassroots has been demanding tangibles for their vote and has been demanding in exchange for their vote, in order to stay relevant, just like P. Diddy said it, in order to stay relevant, these guys are now somewhat imitating the talking points of the new black media and the black grassroots. And that's why Charlemagne is now going around and making it a point to ask people, what are they going to do specifically for black people? Because he knows that he failed to ask presidential candidates and politicians what were they going to do specifically for black people in the past, and he knows that that was starting to expose him. So in order to remain remotely credible in a majority black audience's eyes, Charlemagne has to ask these type of questions that he normally would not ask and does not want to ask. Charlemagne wrote a book called Black Privilege, and when we live in a system of white supremacy. That in and of itself should tell you who Charlemagne is. So Charlemagne's not on code, but because Charlemagne was trying to stay relevant by asking Joe Biden black agenda specific questions, Joe Biden is not used to that, because he's so used to people like Charlemagne and any other black person that's in somewhat mainstream media or mainstream media to bow down to him and not challenge him on anything and not ask him for a black agenda, to just go along with him and agree that he's the best person for black people. He's not used to having to actually prove why he's the best person for black people. He's not used to that. Or justify why. He's just used to black people just voting for him no matter what, because the Republicans are worse. And because he's old and losing it, he lacked the tact. Once pushed, it was too much for him. Even though Charlemagne wasn't pushing him at all, just the fact that he would even ask that question pushed Biden over the edge, and he was like, look, man, why are you asking me questions? If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And again, the reason why a lot of black people had a problem with this is because, first of all, who was Joe Biden, a white man? It's very problematic for a white man, especially a white man with Joe Biden's record of crime bills and pro-busing, pro-segregation, pro-racism. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should have integrated, but the reasons why white supremacists like Joe Biden didn't want us to integrate are different from my reasons why I didn't want us, or why I think that integration was a mistake. But I digress. This video isn't about integration. Joe Biden is a racist. He's an anti-integration, crime bill, mass incarcerating racist. But even if he wasn't that, or if he hadn't had that passed of legislation, which he does, it's problematic for any white person to define what blackness is. Black people decide what is and isn't black, not white people. If a black person wants to clown or joke on another black person and say they're not black for whatever reason, that's between those two black people to hash that out. But in a system of white supremacy and with the experiences that we have had with white people and the destruction and denigration of our identity, white people have shown that they are not to be trusted in any way with defining our identity over history. And they have lost the right by practicing white supremacy to ever decide what is and isn't black and who is and isn't black, as far as our behaviors, or what is a black behavior, or what culturally makes you black. They have no place in discussing that, period, ever. And these are the reasons why black people had a problem with Joe Biden. And one other thing I want to point out, fam, before I close out this video, notice how how that video showed how Joe Biden went on and talked about how everything's disproportionately affecting the black community. This is the same old trick that the Democrats run constantly. They tell you how the black community is disproportionately affected by X, Y, and Z. It's not just coronavirus. You can look at anything, any political issue. If you look at it, mass incarceration, criminal justice, if they get asked about that, well, the black community is disproportionately affected. You talk about birth mortality rates. Well, the black community is disproportionately affected. You talk about drug abuse. Well, the black community is disproportionately affected. You talk about poverty. Well, the black community is disproportionately affected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yet they give us no policies to specifically address the fact that we are specifically disproportionate. You know, Joe Biden will go on and tell you how everything's bad for the black people specifically. That's why he's saying black disproportionate. He's saying that black people are specifically affected. That's why they're disproportionate. That's another way of saying specifically affected in a unique way from everyone else. That's what makes you disproportionate. If anyone doesn't know what the damn word disproportionate means, look it up. It means in comparison to other people, you are specifically and disproportionately affected. That's what Joe Biden was saying. Yet he did not offer specific and disproportionately black policies. This is why black people, you cannot continue to support the Democrats. And it's not just the presidential candidates. It's not just Joe Biden. It's everyone down ballot. Because your congressperson, for 95% of black people, yes, there's one or two candidates out there that have a black agenda. But for 95% of black people, your congressperson, your senator, your city councilman, your state governor, your state congressperson, your state senator, your mayor, it doesn't matter. All of them that are Democrats will tell you that XYZ is disproportionate in the black community, but then not offer any disproportionate, specific black benefits or a solution, a policy that will specifically target the disproportionate, specific black people who are disproportionately and specifically affected. You will not make a policy that specifically targets them in order to remove that disproportion. If people are disproportionately affected by coronavirus, as opposed to other diseases, which they are. A lot of people have lost their job because of coronavirus, not cancer. What do? They offer a policy specifically for coronavirus. Any other problem in the nation, they specifically address that problem. But when it comes to black people, they will not specifically address it. They have to address it for everybody. Did Congress write legislation for all diseases? No, they wrote legislation for the coronavirus. Did they give free testing for all ailments, or did they give free testing for coronavirus? Did they give free HIV testing as a policy? Did they give free cancer screening? Now, yes, there's some people who offer these things, but it's not the government. This is the game that the Democrats play with us. And then they showed you at the end of the video where, you know, Hillary Clinton's hot sauce in my bag interview. And you saw how the Breakfast Club was just jokingly going along with her, even though the Washington Post showed that clip as evidence of this is not the first time a Democratic candidate has had an awkward moment on the Breakfast Club. But if you watch that video, there was nothing awkward between Charlemagne and Angela Yee and DJ Envy and Hillary Clinton. They were all laughing and joking. And that goes back to me saying Charlemagne is not to be trusted. He's just now switching it up because he has to stay relevant. And you notice Charlemagne did not have to start repeating Pan Babble talking points, because the Pan Babblers, when I debated them, at least the ones I debated, they were saying politics is basically irrelevant. Our American politics is. They like one of the dudes I was debating, he didn't even know, he wasn't even sure who Kamala Harris was back when all of us were going in on her because we saw her trying to be pushed as the next Obama. So for you Pan Babblers, just on a side note, notice Charlemagne ain't out here giving out Pan Babble talking points. He's using the new black media's political talking points. He's not talking about the Pan Babble, we can't rely on the white man talk. And we gonna build businesses and we gonna move to Africa. He ain't talking that. And even though all you Pan Babblers have jobs for working for white men, talking that BS. Charlemagne ain't like you, even though he also works for a white man, because he doesn't own the Breakfast Club. He works for somebody white. He's not being like y'all working for a white man and running around here repeating Pan Babble talking points. He's repeating the new black media's talking points about an exchange for our vote. But again, fam, this is just obviously another rant, but the last thing I want to close out this video with is just, fam, remember, the Democrats feel extremely entitled to our vote. And we haven't given them any reason not to, because we keep proving them right and going and voting for Democrats because the Republicans are worse. The Republicans are not worse. It was Democrats who gave us Biden's law. It was Democrats who have implemented the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration. It is Democrats who we continue to vote for while our communities are gentrified at the local level. Remember that when people tell you to vote down ballot. In Detroit's been ran by Democrats for 40 years. And black people are in a worse condition than they've ever been in Detroit. So it's not just the national politicians. But let's go back to a national politician, Obama. Police brutality skyrocketed under him, and he did nothing to stop it. In fact, he went the opposite way and signed a Blue Lives Matter law. The Congressional Black Caucus. Many of you who are in the movement that I'm not going to name, but that I used to agree with, but no longer, y'all spend a lot of time going in on the Congressional Black Caucus. Those are Democrats, down ballot Democrats. Because remember, anybody that's not the president is a down ballot candidate. So it's not just Joe Biden. It's the entire Democratic Party. Joe Biden just said what the entire Democratic Party feels and shows us they feel through their policy every year, decade after decade. So, fam, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep allowing the Democrats to feel entitled to our vote to the point where they can tell us that we aren't black if we don't vote for them, even though they do just as much, if not worse, damage to us than the damn Republicans, because we vote for them and they still enact policies that actively harm our condition? What are we going to do, fam? Black people must not vote, but if you vote, vote third party or vote for Trump and Republicans in order to show the Democrats that they are not entitled to your vote. They do not own you, and they must respect your demands instead of reacting when you do even ask a question, a soft question that Charlemagne asked, that sounds like you might be making a demand, that they get so flustered that they say, you know what, you ain't black. You ain't black if you want something in exchange for your politics. That's not what black people do. That's basically what Joe Biden said. You ain't black if you want something in exchange for your politics. That's not what black people do. Yet a lot of idiot black people are still going to go out and vote for him, unfortunately. And other black people who are not going to vote for him are still going to be stupid enough to vote down ballot for people who are just like him. But anyway, fam, that's another video. This video is longer than I wanted. I wanted it to be real short, but I just started ranting. So anyway, like, share, subscribe. That's another video, and peace.